Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Our show today is Dementia Home Care, and our topic is caregiver training for dementia patients who refuse to bathe. You may say to yourself, how could someone not want to bathe? How could they refuse to bathe? Well, it actually happens. And if you're experiencing this, it can be quite challenging. We have our expert and the star of our show, Tracy Perkins, who's joining us. She's an author, and she's also someone who knows all about dementia home care survival because she has done it 4 different times as a caregiver. Let's welcome her to the program as she joins us from it's oh so early on the West Coast of the United States. Welcome, Tracy.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for getting up so early. I think about, I'm like, oh, she's 3 hours early than we are here. That's what time did she get? 5 something?
I got up at 5. Yeah.
Yeah. That is commitment, my friend. I love it. So there might be people join us for the first time and they're interested in this topic. They see the book behind us. Tell us a little bit about how and why you came to be so much of an expert in this topic.
Well, as you mentioned in the introduction, I have cared for 4 different family members over the course of 16 years. Everybody was different. My mom had anesthesia dementia from cancer treatment. My dad had full-blown Alzheimer's disease, and I did the bulk of my care with he and my uncle at the same time. My uncle had early Alzheimer's disease, and my aunt had vascular dementia. So it's been a challenge because every single person was different. They also had additional health issues, and I had no medical training whatsoever. I had no idea where I was going with this. And so it was fail until I found something that worked. And it was so frustrating and exhausting that I finally started writing everything down and putting it someplace where I could find it at once instead of running to the 30 different books I owned and rereading them, trying to find that one thing as somebody was melting down in front of me. So eventually it just became the book you see, right here. And I just wanted to make sure people had a toolkit. So you didn't go through the same things that I went through. You could actually have something where you could go to that page and find the thing that met the challenge of that moment. I created a 8-page table of contents in the book that acts as a dementia map. You can literally run your finger down it, find whatever that frustrating thing is that's going on right in that moment, turn to that page, and the instructions are right there. So I just wanted to make sure people had an instruction manual and a toolbox to be able to answer the questions for the frustration that they're dealing with that moment so they could actually, have a chance to relax and enjoy the time with your family member, not sitting there going, I want to curl up in a ball and cry in the corner. So that's really what inspired me to do this. And my dad, bless his heart, gave me permission to use his story before he started going. He said to me that I was learning so many different things. He goes, you have to share this with people. You can't just keep it with me. So it was that also was part of the driving force to this.
Well, thank you again for capturing all of the information at the same time you're caregiving, and then you to put it all together, and you have to be reliving it as well. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's hard to do. But the topic today is for patients who refuse to bathe. What is this about? People might be thinking to themselves, come on, everybody needs to take a shower or take a bath, and they're going to do it at some point. That's not always
Well,
the case.
no, and you have to understand, especially if it's Alzheimer's disease or any of the dementias, their brain is changing. So they're not remembering that they didn't bathe. So in their mind, time works differently. So they don't always know that it's been a week or a month or a year since they bathed last. And if you try to force them to bathe, you're going to meet with resistance. You might find them screaming or yelling or telling you that they already bathed. And using the line, you stink, I have found never worked. So it was trying to find a way to work with whatever they were going through and getting into their shoes to help them help themselves. So we had to figure out, okay, is it fear that we're dealing with? Because a lot of people with dementia are afraid of getting their face into water because they might drown. It only takes 2 inches of water for somebody to drown in a bathtub, so it's a legitimate fear. But we have to address that fear and help them get through it. Also, it's a modesty issue. Depending on the age of the person, they may not want to be seen naked by somebody else. And so it's finding out, is that what the issue is? So addressing whatever fear it is that's causing the issue. Also, maybe it's because they don't remember. Make some sort of routine where they actually get to look forward to bathing, whether it's creating kind of a spa-like environment or perhaps suggesting that somebody is coming over and they might want to freshen up before they got there. I mean, it doesn't hurt to say, "Oh, there might be a lady or gentleman caller coming over. You might want to freshen up before they arrive." So anything you can do to encourage them and reduce the fear, but we need to first figure out what it is that's causing them to refuse to bathe. It also could be that they are forgetting how to bathe and they don't want to admit it because that would admit that they have dementia. So it's trying to figure it out and deal with it graciously so that yelling at them or trying to force them to do something, it takes away their humanity and their independence. They're already lost at sea. They don't know how to get back to shore. And so it's really, we're the anchor. We're the person trying to keep them anchored to us. And so trying to help them help themselves is probably the easiest way to get them to bathe. And we can talk about strategies here in just a minute. Did you
Great.
have any? Oh,
Yeah,
good.
thank you. So let's look at the other perspective. Is there or what is the danger if people don't bathe?
Uh, well, okay, no one ever died from not taking a bath. And if you don't believe me, we didn't start bathing until the 1800s. So there's millions of people that did not die from not taking a bath. So unless you get an infection, you're not going to die, but you are going to smell horrible. So there's the downside is it's hard to live with them because your eyes are going to water. Not speaking from personal experience. Okay, I'm really speaking from personal experience. It's hard to not deal with somebody that hasn't bathed in a while. Um, but they're not going to die. So it's trying to get them to a place of safety where they're willing to bathe. I was working with a woman not too long ago, and her mother hadn't bathed in over a year. And everything she tried wasn't working, and so we were discussing what her methods were, and of course, she used the same line I did about "you stink," and of course, all that did was cause her mom to yell at her. So, eventually, we found out that her mom, was afraid of drowning, and so then she was able to address that by demonstrating exactly before she got into the shower how it was going to work, that she was going to sit in this chair, that they were gonna use a washcloth basically and do a spat bath so that she could get cleaned that way and be sitting in the chair. We got her a modesty garment from Dignity Resource Council, which is for a woman. It's a two-piece terry outfit. The top, and then you bathe underneath it so that you're not exposing any parts that wouldn't be exposed. And so we were able to work through it that way, but that doesn't it that may not work for everyone. So it's just knowing that there are more options out there and trying to figure out what it is that to help that person bathe.
Tracy, I think that's really interesting that in this case, the woman hadn't bathed in a year.
Mhm.
And was she aware of it or
Um,
not?
I'm not 100% sure. She kept saying she bathed, but I don't know if she was saying that because she wanted to stall she didn't wanna face the fear of drowning or getting the water in her face, and I know this is really common 'cause I dealt with it with my dad. He and I used to swim when I was in high school together, and he didn't wanna go he wanted to go swimming with me. We went to the pool, and he freaked out because he couldn't put his face in the water, and so we had to find a way to get around that, and so I found an aqua class for seniors so that he could go in and stand up and do exercises with all the rest of the people and then chat with them and never get his face in the water.
Mm.
So it's just trying to figure out what that specific thing is that person is afraid of. And they may not be able to tell you. You may have to just kind of watch their behavior depending on how their dementia is to figure out what the problem is. Sometimes you can use cueing cards and you can ask questions and suss the story out that way. So there's many different ways to do it. It just depends on the person you're working with.
And I'm wondering for people in the audience who are caregiving, is it possible that the patient will make things up knowingly or that they'll just outright lie so that they don't have to do what you ask?
Actually, it's probably not a lie. It's probably uh, there. Okay, let's talk about Alzheimer's disease for a second. With Alzheimer's disease, the brain is shrinking and developing holes. And the way we learn as we are growing up is we connect the dots. So we take whatever experience we have something we haven't experienced before, and then we have to use our previous knowledge to help us understand what we're facing. Sometimes we'll understand it, sometimes we won't. So as we start learning and our experience gets broader, our mind helps us to bridge that gap to learn things more quickly. With dementia, now you've got gaping holes in the brain. And so they're having to fill in the blank. So it's not them making up a story necessarily, it's them that's what's logical to them because that's the only thing their brain is supplying them, and it may not jive with what's going on around us, and we just have to understand that they don't understand. That's all they can figure out, that they've got this huge gap in their story and that's all they can think of. So it's kind of like when people have when they accuse you of stealing things, it's because their brain won't allow them to see that it's them that's tearing stuff apart and leaving it scattered all around the room in these huge piles and they can't find anything and then they think that you've stolen it. So it's that sort of thing. So it's not that they're lying to you, it's that that's where their brain is at. That's where they're telling you they are, and we have to meet them where they are. And if okay, let me also suggest something else. I don't know if you've heard of the book Still Alice by Lisa Genova. Let me move it over here. Um, it is a great book for explaining what it's like to have dementia and how the brain unravels. And it's incredible. If you take the time to read that book, well, first of all, it's very emotional if you are currently caregiving. But if you take the time to read that book, you will understand where they are coming from and how to help them because you'll see what she's going through because it's told from the perspective of a woman who has Alzheimer's disease. So it's one of those things the more you understand, the more you know, the easier it is for you to be able to get into their shoes and figure out what's going on. So it's not that they're lying to you, that's what their brain is telling them. To give an example, let's say that you walked into a house that was that was for sale, and the living room, it was a beautiful white living room, had bay windows looking out over a valley, just incredible white carpet. Everything is spick and span, and I'm the sales lady. I invite you in as the realtor to come and sit down in this lovely chair, and you don't see a chair. Are you gonna believe me that there's a chair there? Probably not, because your mind tells you that there's no furniture. Well, what happens if all the furniture is white and there's not enough contrast for them to see it? That's what we're dealing with. They can't see what it is that you're trying to guide them through. So we need to figure out how to help them see what they need to do. And that's so when getting them to bathe, if they're arguing with you, we need to address the fear that's causing it. It's more likely we need to invite them in and encourage them and make up some scenario that will help them to bathe.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. And let's look at a couple of different scenarios. So you mentioned the one where the woman hasn't taken a shower for a year and
Mhm,
needed help doing it. What if someone is independent enough to be able to take the shower physically? They don't really need any help.
mhm.
And at the same time, they won't accept any help. So I'm fine. I can do it myself, but I'm not going to do it.
So, have they ever gone to a spa?
They're not a spa person in this
They're not
example.
as okay. Okay. So then another example is to find out, all right, if they're not willing to bathe themselves and they're not willing to have someone help them, ask them what will help them. Involve the person in that conversation and say, okay, we have a problem. You may not be aware of it, but we don't want your skin to break down. We don't want you to get sick or get infections. And so we need to address how you're going to be able to keep clean. I I know that you can do it yourself, but what do you need in order to bathe? What will help you to bathe? Because at this point, we don't want it's I love you. I don't want you to have any skin ulcers or to have any other issues where you might have a health problem and that and we really need to make sure that you keep your skin clean.
Yeah, I
So
think that makes a lot of sense. And we have had a nurse on whom we interviewed, and the nurse mentioned that in seeing patients on a regular basis, there are all kinds of things that can happen to your skin, like
mhm.
what you just mentioned. So, although no one ever died, I guess, of not taking a bath, they could get an infection.
Yes, and there if she's not into t if she's not gonna let you take a sh help her take a shower or a bath, there are cleansing products that you can rub on the skin, and perhaps when you're sitting there in the evening watching television together, with your family member, you can, do it yourself and ask her if she would like to try some and have her rub some on at the same time. That way, she's not feeling like she's in the spotlight, but you're trying a new product, ask her what she thinks, and of course, her mind's gonna reset, so you can do this over and over until you finally get everything all clean. So there are products that you can use either cleansing cleaner like lotions, or you can use like wet wipes, and just say you're testing a product. You want her opinion, so now you're involving her in it. Ask her what she thinks. Have her rub it into her arms or her legs or whatever it is, and say, "Okay, how do you feel about that? Do you like that product? Please give me some feedback." And then just keep testing it out until she's cleaned enough spots that you're comfortable that she's at least partially clean. So get her involved so that she thinks she's part of the process, because the more that you honor her and ask her opinion, the more cooperative she's going to be, or he, whoever it is. I'm assuming is she because uh, two-thirds of all people that are being cared for are women with Alzheimer's disease.
Wow, that's really fascinating. I didn't know that. So, in these scenarios, what do you, as the caregiver, do so that you're not losing your mind?
Okay, that's a very good question. I am very strongly supportive of support groups. I cannot say how many times that has helped me in the past, because you're all going through at the same time. Everyone has different experiences, and you can share what worked. And so there might be things you haven't even encountered yet that people in your support group can help you with. If that doesn't work, you also can do the things like, I don't know if you've heard of the book Share the Care, but caregiving is really isolating when you're doing dementia care. People just are afraid and they don't know how to react or connect. Teaching people how to help you and then actually getting quality time away from your family member because they now understand how to help, their time has value. So even if it's coming in and they help you maybe wash the dishes or bring in groceries for you or whatever it is, and then sit down, and then if you have some activity that they can do together, even if it's the using the lotion to get clean, or maybe it's an activity where you're looking at photos and and your loved one can tell a story about the photo. Could be something that is a recovered memory, or it could be a fantastic work of fiction. You just don't know what's going to come out at that point. So anything you can do to teach people that dementia is only scary because you don't understand what's going on and you don't know how to communicate. Learning how to communicate with somebody with dementia can give you such an incredible bond. You never know what you're going to get. Sometimes it can be really funny. I mean, there are things that will last with you for the rest of your life if you're willing to overcome that fear. And really, fear is just false evidence appearing real. So it's whatever we have in our mind that's the stumbling block and not something that they're doing. And yes, sometimes it's hard to communicate, and sometimes they're going to mumble, and sometimes they're not going to make any sense, or they're going to repeat on a loop 15, 20 times. if you understand how to break the loop, again, having a memory book, which I've talked about in other episodes here, but tonight or today we'll talk about this, is if you put a memory book together that has their story in it, it start with photos from their age 5 up to current, and then put it on removable pages, such as in a binder, and having a sentence that's no more than 8 to 10 words, because they at some point in moderate dementia, they'll lose the first half of the sentence before they get to the last half of the sentence. So if short sentences, never have more than, say, 3 people in a picture, but have things that were meaningful for them during their life. So when they get stuck in that repeat loop where they just can't stop asking the same question, it's because they have lost the ability to answer the question, or they don't realize that they've talked about it again. So by giving them that book and putting something tactile in their hand, it will distract them, and then you can redirect them. So anything you can do to have them look at pictures, or maybe give them a fidget quilt or something like that, will give you some downtime so you're not hearing the same thing over and over and over again. Using whiteboards is another great way to put answers to their most common questions. Um, I realize I've derailed from your main question, Dr. Jacalyn, but just having some tools in place, plus having people come in and help spell you, um, or if you can do like a adult daycare program for Alzheimer's patients, check and see if they have that in your area, then your family member actually gets time out, and so do you. So it's a win-win because you get socialization. Um, but yeah, doing things that going for a quick walk, anything you can do to relieve your stress, breathing is another huge one. We don't breathe enough when we're caregiving. We tend to hold our breath. Um, this is really true for people that are taking care of people with dementia. Set an alarm on your cell phone to remind yourself to breathe once an hour. Do a 5-minute breathing exercise. Just help yourself to get back to calm and just relax. Because again, we tend to get very stressed. We tend to get very angsty. I mean, we just and then you have no outlet, and it just builds and builds and builds, and then other things are going to happen to you that affect your health. So anything you can do to, exercise, talk to other people, have a time out, you want to do it.
Great information as always, Tracy. And while you're talking, I'm imagining that people going through this, there's that fear, and there's got to be some kind of anger as well as grief, because the person that you remember, the person that you love, isn't that person. They're still there, but they're there in a different way.
Exactly. And it is. You're being systematically erased from their life. And there's nothing that is more hurtful than someone that you love so deeply and that you're grieving the loss of that connection. And so it's very difficult to transition. I I've had it experienced it first when I was taking care of my mom, and at the beginning, she knew who I was, but her mind would reset. So we got to talk about a lot of things that, we clashed over when I was growing up, and we were able to get those out in the open, and then she'd forget, and we'd be all happy again, and so for me, it was very cathartic, and towards the end, um, because she couldn't communicate very much anymore, I was reading her favorite series, which is the Lillian Jackson Braun's books, the Cat Who series, and we made it from book 1 to the very end of the series, uh, right before she died. I mean, after we finished the series, she died 2 days later. But during that time, she only knew me as the book lady, and so she always greeted me, "Hello, book lady." They keep telling me you're my daughter, but I only know you as the book lady. And I said, I am the book lady because I realized I had to reinvent my relationship with her. And this is something I talk about in the book is that you can have a second chance at that relationship. Yes, it's on a different footing, but you can really connect with them if you have the ability to step outside yourself and be in their shoes and connect with her on that or him on that level. So it's just a case of learning to reinvent the relationship so that you have something to connect to emotionally because you get it's so frustrating and it makes you angry and you just want to cry and you grieve and you're depressed. There's so many different things that you go through during that whole thing that anything that you can do to create laughter, create memories for yourself, uh, try and have fun. You have to give yourself permission to have fun. And that's the hardest thing to do when you're caregiving because they're not behaving the way they used to. You don't have that connection. You can't turn to them and rely on them for the things that they've done together with you for your entire lifetime. So you've got to find a way to reinvent that relationship.
Thank you, Tracy. Recently in the news, one of the A-list celebrities was diagnosed, and the family was celebrating this person's birthday. And one thing I thought that was really profound was in one of the social media posts, one of the family members put to the paparazzi, if you see us out in public, please do not start screaming his name or yelling things to him, because it's very difficult to get a person from point A to point B. And I thought, wow, that was really profound, because the patient is leaving one scenario and going to another. So I know you've talked about this before, but if you could just touch on it again. As caregivers, should we move the patient from place to place? And in order for them to have some kind of socialization, that means they're going to be in potentially new locations, new environments. What's the best thing to do?
Okay, if you can work this into the routine where this starts becoming something that they do regularly, then this I am all for it. If it's something where you're gonna go from place to place to place and they're constantly bombarded with new, and they can't process the new, that might be a little more difficult, especially the farther into the dementia that they get. Also, as you're mentioning with them not shouting out the name to the celebrity, um, sound becomes a really huge issue. When someone has dementia, they can no longer filter out the background noise like you and I can. So, as we're walking down the street, there's going to be background noise. You're going to hear car traffic, you're going to hear horns, you're going to hear people talking, you might hear birds, the wind might be blowing, it could be rain. Anything that's making noise, a car could backfire. We can filter that out. They can't. So they're gonna get overwhelmed, emotional, and out of control, and they'll probably start getting angry and yelling or lashing out physically, which is another reason why they didn't want the paparazzi to be yelling out names. It's difficult to keep someone who has dementia focused on going from point A to point B if they have a bunch of extraneous noise being yelled at them. And if they're hearing their name, they're going to respond to their name, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be a positive outcome. So, for the rest of us who are not going to have cameras flashing at us all the time, being able to get them from point A to point B on something that becomes routine. So like I said, maybe it's going to having an activity for at an adult daycare center where they get to actually socialize and something that they look forward to. They were You have to understand that dementia is emotionally related memory. They'll remember things that were good, they'll remember things that were bad. So the more you can relate to having somebody remember something that's good, you are going to get a better response. Again, going back to bathing, if sometimes it might take a while to get them to forgive you if there's been a lot of constant nagging. It's important to at this point do things that they enjoy, get spend some time getting to talk to them and perhaps doing some of the things that we talked about, like, cleaning on while you're sitting on the sofa, testing out products. Um, but anything you can do that makes something pleasurable, you're going to get a better outcome. So you can take them. So, like, let's say you wanted to go dining out in a restaurant. You have to go when it's quiet. You cannot go when it's gonna be full, like, on a Friday or a Saturday night. It could be, like, if you go at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, it'll be quiet. You won't have to worry about a lot of noise, and then you can help them when they get overwhelmed by looking at the menu, walk them through and list whatever their favorite choices are. Always list their favorite choice last, because they will always answer whatever they hear last, even though that might not be something they like. So if they liked dessert and they wanted vanilla ice cream, but they couldn't remember what they wanted, you could say, "Do you want strawberry shortcake? Do you want the volcano cake? Do you want vanilla ice cream?" And then they'll say, "I want vanilla ice cream." So anything you can do to encourage them and empower them, give them some choices, but limit it. Don't use more than 3 choices so that they actually get to choose and they still feel empowered. And you can keep them connected and concentrated, because the more noise, the harder it is for them to stay focused. So you can still go from place to place. You just have to make sure that you cater it to their needs for the best outcome.
Wow, Tracy, I'm having a hard time filtering out those desserts. I was like, "Where is she getting these names from? Volcano?" I'm like, "Yes, give me that one."
Oh.
So that's great information about the quiet and the fact that when they're making choice when you're giving them choices, the last one is the one that should be their favorite that they'll remember. So if we go back to the beginning, which is about the caregiver training for dementia patients who refuse to bathe, once we get them to bathe or they agree to bathe, the bathing is done. How often should the bathing take place?
Well, you can do it once a week. That's what a lot of times they do that in skilled care facilities. They do bathing once a week. Be sure to give them a reward after they bathe. So, give them something that they love. So maybe it is food. Maybe they do want a little sweet treat. Something that they can look forward to as a reward after they bathe, helps empower them remember it. Again, you want to build positive memories, something that they look forward to, because then they'll be more encouraged to do it and you'll get less resistance. So if you have some sort of reward afterwards, and it may not be that they want food, maybe they want something else. Whatever you find that gives them a positive reward afterwards, do it, because then you are going to have a better outcome. It could be that perhaps they have a thing for new clothes or different clothes. Well, what we found in my family is that if I went to the thrift store and I bought 4 or 5, items that all looked very similar to what their favorite outfit was, well, then I ended up wrapping it as a present and said it was from somebody else. Actually, I had my dad wrap it as a present for a friend. He didn't know it was for him, and I had a notes that I recycled in there from family members and friends saying, "This is a gift for you." And so he would find it on his pillow every morning after breakfast. He'd open it up, he'd get all excited. I'd tell him I want to take his picture to send it to them, and he'd want to go freshen up. And so then we would get his daily shower in, and then he would put the clothes on and we would take pictures. And so then I would send the photo to whoever it was. Well, actually, what it was, I got photos for me because one time because he was such a big wanderer, um, I didn't know what he was wearing, even though I'd worn the same clothes for 3 days. I had gone completely blank because my brain panicked. So I used the daily photo then so that if he did wander, I would be able to tell the police what he was wearing. But also because he became a ham, it became a routine. We had a lot of fun with it. I have this one photo where some friends sent him a baseball cap that was too small for his head. So he was modeling it first frontwards, then sideways like he was a gangsta, and then back like he was, something else. I don't remember what he told me he was. But anyway, we had a lot of fun with it. So anything that you can do to encourage them to have fun, you're going to get a better outcome.
I love it. What would you say are some of the key learnings that you've had? In other words, you did this, and now with all the experience that you have, you would not do it that way. You do it differently.
Hallucinations. Woohoo! I had a hard time with hallucinations because I didn't get it. Oh, so we had multiple hallucinations that we had to deal with, but the scariest one I ever had, my husband and I had taken my dad on a camping trip. We took an RV instead of our normal camping gear because it was easier to control everything. We rented an RV and we met some friends up in Canada. And my dad was so far out of routine that we had all sorts of horrible things happen. Um, he ended up being so stressed out, not because of what was going on around him, but just because of the travel. It gave him intestinal neuropathy, um, which is not pretty, as I'm sure you can imagine. And then he was imagining every night that there was somebody outside shooting guns every night. So he would have this hallucination and he would be terrified. And of course, then he would soil himself because he's afraid he's going to get killed. My husband and I would wake up and he would be staring at us across the RV, to the little beds, uh, thinking we were ghosts. He did not realize we were real people until we touched him. So the first night we failed completely because we were arguing with him. Okay, that didn't work well. So the next night we realized arguing doesn't work. So then the next time it happened, my husband went outside to make sure the coast was clear and then came back in after we had assured my dad that we weren't ghosts. And he was fine after that. And then we were able to clean everything up and move on. But for 3 nights in a row, the first night was an epic failure. And yeah, it was just not pretty. So afterwards, when we figured out if we got into his shoes, took care of whatever his fear was, assured him that we checked it out because he saw my husband physically leave, walk around outside because he could see through the windows. And my husband was making sure there was no gunman out there. And then he would come back in and everything was fine. So it was definitely an epic failure the first time. And he had another one where he thought his coat was trying to poison him. And we had to go to a doctor's appointment, and I had a very limited amount of time, and I was running late, and he was freaking out about his coat, and he was telling me he was gonna die from the poison, and I was gonna die too, and so I told him to hold his breath and grab the coat, and we were gonna throw it in the closet together. So we threw it in the closet and then slammed the door shut, and then we started breathing again. Thankfully, he didn't recognize the fact that, that would make no difference if it really was poisonous. But that was okay because I met him where he was, and then we were able to, after we all both calmed down, I got him a different coat, and then we were able to go to his doctor's appointment. But it was very challenging because in the moment, if I hadn't had the experience with the gunfight out front of our RV, I would have never figured out how to take care of the coat. So you learn from experience. There were others, but those were the two biggies.
You could write a book just on those.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of books, I'd love for you to read a passage from your book, Dementia Home Care.
Oh, okay. Do you have any preference on what I read?
No, I think if there is something, I know there is, but in reference to bathing, that would be great.
Yeah, let me find it real quick and I will. Let's talk about bathroom safety. Let me get to page 78 here because we didn't talk about that and the use of colors. And this is a big deal. So I'm just going to read you a few things about bathroom safety. Um, so when you're getting ready here, when inspecting the bathroom, make sure it is free of safety hazards that could possibly cause injury. Here are a few things to consider. Is the door a pocket door? If it is not, does it have a doorknob? Excuse me. If it does not have a doorknob, they may not be able to figure out how to open it. Is the floor clear of clutter that could cause a fall? Even a scale can cause a trip hazard. Is the floor level and non slippery? Is there a wax coating on the floor? If so, remove it. Are there safety rated grab bars next to the toilet or in the tub shower area? If not, install them. Towel bars will not prevent a person from falling. Can he or she safely get up or sit down from a toilet? If not, consider a raised toilet seat. Commode liners are available to ensure urine and feces go down into the toilet. Do his or her feet touch the floor when he or she sits on the raised toilet seat? If not, consider adding toilet stools or something similar to a squatty potty for stability. So, those are just some of the things to think about with bathroom safety. The list continues on. I have about 15 or 20 items there that you can look at that can help make the bathroom more safe. Another thing to think about is color. Do you have checkered floors? If you have checkered floors, they can cause hallucinations. So you don't want to use anything that's check patterned. Do not use black in the bathroom. If you have any black on the floor, it looks like a hole. It will cause somebody to be afraid of using the bathroom and they won't use it and they will seek alternative sources. So you want to have a black toilet seat. You don't want to have black bath mats or mats around the toilet that are black, anything that can make them think it's a hole. And is there enough color contrast in the bathroom that they can actually see what you're asking them to do? If you have a white tub and a white shower chair, they aren't going to be able to see it to sit down. So you want to throw a brightly colored contrasting towel over it so they can see where to sit safely. So things like that to consider.
Wow, Tracy, that's something I never thought of. Can you just share before we close out, what stage is it that people usually have these kinds of issues?
It starts it with moderate dementia. So once they get past mild, when they're in the early stages of dementia, they recognize that they're starting to forget things and they know there's a problem. When they get to moderate dementia, they no longer recognize they have dementia, and that's when the problem solving stops. So that's when they need the most help, and that's when the bathing usually is a good sign that they're having an issue.
And then what's the final stage?
Okay, severe Alzheimer's disease or severe dementia, that's when they become bedridden. They actually, their language skills drop down to like maybe 5 words, or it'll be noises or motions. They're usually curling up in bed. They're usually bedridden at this point, and require around the clock care. So it becomes very, very obvious when they get to that point.
Thank you so much, Tracy. We do have a couple of comments, and I'm really thrilled to see that Angelita is with us. Hello, nice to have you. Wow, very useful tips. I used to take care of an old lady with dementia. This is so useful. Thanks for sharing. And for those of you who don't know, you can actually watch Angelita's show that she did, Live, Learn, Teach, and Inspire, with Philip Sykes in the British School of Excellence. It's over on our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for being here. Tracy, how can people purchase your book? How can they reach out to you so that they can feel this sense of somebody who knows what I should do?
Okay, so my book is available everywhere books are sold. You can get it online at Amazon, Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, any independent bookseller. It's available anywhere you want. You can reach me through my website at tracycramperkins.com, on social at Tracy Cram Perkins, or at my email address is Tracy at tracycramperkins.com. You'll see that here at the bottom of the screen. I'm available through all of those. I spend the most time on Facebook. Uh, I'm having Instagram problems because I haven't figured out how to make the transition since they made their last upgrade. So it'll take me a little bit before I'm back on Instagram. I'll be honest.
I love the transparency. Thank you. And thanks for being here, and especially for giving all this information. It's so valuable because I know that each and every one of us either has known or will know someone, whether it's us or someone else, who is impacted by dementia. So you are just giving us the Bible of information, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jacalyn. I am so honored to be here.
Thank you. And thanks for getting up so early, and hopefully you can get a quick snooze before your rest of the day.
Right on.
Yeah. And you'll be back again next month. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, so next month we'll be back. We may or may not have a guest next month. I am still working on getting that worked out. If not, we'll have another topic, or we can answer questions. If you want to send me questions you want answered, I'd be very happy to answer them on our next episode. So, however you guys would like to move forward, we would love to answer your questions.
All right. Thank you again, Tracy. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you. You too, Dr. Jacalyn.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
And for each and every one of you out there, hopefully you realize that you are not alone. There is information out there. There are people who have done this, who are doing this, like Tracy, who are happy to assist. Just you have to reach out. It takes that effort to get the information. I actually own a copy of this book, and it's fabulous. I highly recommend that you go and purchase it right now. All right. Our next show is coming up. It is the Business Talk Show, and we will be welcoming Glenda Benavides from Los Angeles, and she's going to be talking about the music industry. It's the business of music. So please do join us. Thank you again for being here. We'll be back very soon. Bye, Tracy. Bye, everyone.